Hello, my dear listeners. Please write in the comments which city or country you are listening to us from. And don't forget to subscribe and like. Enjoy listening. The rain drummed on the roof of the stolen car as Michael Rodriguez and Vincent Diaz burst out of the First National Bank in downtown Baltimore. In Michael's hands was a bag containing $37,000, money that was supposed to change their lives. At the wheel was Ray Martinez, a drug-addicted driver they had hired at the last minute for $500. The guy was high, his eyes were red, and his hands were shaking. But there was no choice. Their regular driver had fallen ill, and the robbery couldn't be postponed. "Step on it," Vincent shouted, jumping into the back seat. Ray pressed the gas, and the car lurched forward. Police cars flashed in the rearview mirror. The bank guard had managed to hit the alarm button. "Faster!" Michael clutched the bag of money. He was 19 years old and thought the whole world was at his feet. Ray turned onto Maryland Avenue, then sharply turned onto North Street. The speedometer showed 80 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone. Ahead, the yellow traffic light started flashing. "We can make it," Ray yelled. "Slow down, idiot," Michael shouted. But it was too late. A school bus pulled out from the right, yellow, huge, filled with children returning home from Martin Luther King School. Time slowed down. Michael saw the face of the bus driver, his eyes wide with terror. He heard the children's screams. He saw little faces in the windows. Impact, metal against metal, the sound of shattering glass. Screams, silence. When Michael came to, he was lying on the asphalt in a pool of his own blood. Their car was burning nearby. The bus lay on its side with mangled seats sticking out. The firefighters were the first to arrive at the scene. Then the ambulance. Then the police. Michael watched as children were carried out of the bus. Some were crying, others were silent. Some were carried out motionless, covered with sheets. 3 dead, he heard the paramedic's voice. 9 years old, 10 and 11. Ricardo Vasquez, 9 years old. Carlos Mendez, 10 years old. Anna Johnson, 11 years old. Names that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Vincent fled the scene of the accident. Michael was arrested right in the hospital. Ray died on the way to the hospital. The judge sentenced him to 19 years for armed robbery and death under aggravating circumstances. "Your actions led to the death of 3 innocent children," the judge said during the sentencing. "This crime has forever changed the lives of many families." In the courtroom, the parents of the deceased children were crying. Michael remembered the faces of each of them, especially Ricardo's mother, Maria Vasquez. She looked at him with such pain that his soul felt like it was torn in half. He spent 19 years in Maryland State Prison, thinking every day about the 3 children he had killed. Today, the steel doors of Baltimore prison closed behind Michael Rodriguez, with the same cold clang they had made 19 years ago. Back then, the sound signified the beginning of a nightmare. Now it sounded like the final chord of a symphony he never wanted to hear again. In the pocket of his worn prison jacket lay a wooden chess piece. A king, carved by the trembling hands of his cellmate Jimmy 3 days before the guards found him dead in the shower. "Mike," Jimmy had rasped, handing him the piece. "When you get out, be the king of your life. But remember, even kings pay for their sins." Bus stop. The smell of exhaust and asphalt heated by the October sun. Michael pulled a crumpled piece of paper with an address from another pocket. A room in a boarding house on the east side. $27 a day, all he could afford on the re-entry allowance. The world had changed beyond recognition. People walked, glued to their small glowing screens. Cars looked like spaceships. Even the air smelled different. Bus number 14 arrived after half an hour. Michael climbed the steps and froze. The driver was looking at him expectantly. How much is the fare?" 75 cents, card or cash?" "What card?" Passengers began to turn around. A middle-aged woman shook her head with pity. A teenager snickered. "Grandpa, where have you been? The moon." "Charm card, buddy. Where the hell have you been for the last 20 years?" The driver grumbled. In hell, Michael thought, extending $2 with trembling fingers. In prison, everything was simple. Wake up at 6, breakfast at 7, work at 8. Here, every little thing felt like a quest from a parallel universe. The tenement on Madison Street greeted him with the smell of mold and hopelessness. In the lobby, syringes and empty bottles lay scattered. Graffiti on the walls promised death to various categories of citizens. The manager, a fat man with a beer belly and suspicious eyes, didn't even look up from the television. Deposit $100, rent $750 a month, pay by the 5th. Late by a day, out on the street. Noise after 10, out on the street. Drugs or alcohol, out on the street. Clear, convict? The last word sounded like a slap. Michael silently took the key to room 307. The room was 3 by 4 meters. A single bed with a broken spring, a table that wobbled at the slightest touch, a window overlooking the trash bins. On the wall hung a calendar from 2008. Apparently, the previous tenant forgot to take it down. Michael sat on the bed and took out a wooden king. The figure was the size of a thumb, carved from a piece of wood that Jimmy had stolen from the prison carpentry shop. The word hope was engraved on the crown. "Well, Jimmy," he whispered, "here it is, my royal residence." The first night, sleep wouldn't come. Every sound made him flinch. Next door, someone was loudly watching television until 4 in the morning. Upstairs, neighbors were arguing. A man was yelling at a woman. She was crying and begging him to stop. Outside, sirens wailed. In prison, there was silence after lights out at 10 p.m. Violators were put in solitary confinement. Here, silence didn't exist at all. But worse than the sounds were the dreams. Every night, Michael saw the same thing, a yellow school bus, the faces of children in the windows, the moment of impact. And always at the end of the dream, a 9-year-old boy with big brown eyes approached him. "My name is Ricardo," the child said. "Because of you, I will never grow up." Michael woke up in a cold sweat and for several minutes couldn't understand where he was. At 5 in the morning, he gave up and went outside. The neighborhood woke up slowly and reluctantly. Homeless people were collecting bottles near the trash bins. Prostitutes were leaving after their night shift. School children with vacant eyes trudged to the bus stop. Just like me at their age, Michael thought. No one cared what would happen to me. And here's what happened. The first thing, looking for a job. Michael bought a local newspaper at a kiosk and started calling the ads. The construction company, Harris & Sons, was looking for laborers. The secretary, a 25-year-old girl with bright pink nails, was typing something on the computer without looking up. Application on the table. Fill it out and wait. Michael took the form and began to read. Name, address, education, work experience, and then a question that made his hands go cold. "Have you ever been convicted of a felony?" He checked yes and wrote armed robbery, manslaughter, 19 years. 5 minutes later, he was called to the manager. "Mr. Rodriguez? Jim Harris." "Have a seat." A man in his 50s with calloused hands and tired eyes. "I see you have a complicated past." "Yes, sir, but I've served my time and I'm ready to work." Jim read the documents, the wrinkles on his forehead deepening with each line. "It says here that children died as a result of the crime." Michael felt a lump rise in his throat. 3 children, an accident during the escape. God. A long pause. Jim looked at the photograph on his desk. 2 children, 7 and 9 years old, smiled at the camera. "You see, Mr. Rodriguez, I have 2 little ones myself, and while you may have changed, I can't risk the company's reputation." "I understand, sir." "I'm really sorry, but no." The next 2 weeks turned into a marathon of rejections. Auto repair shop? No. Supermarket? No. Delivery service? No. Cleaning company? No. The same story everywhere. Initial interest, then the question about a criminal record, followed by the cold, "We'll call you back." The rejection from the homeless shelter was particularly painful. "We can't allow someone with your past to work with vulnerable people," said the director, a woman in her 60s with kind but unyielding eyes. "But I'm practically homeless myself," Michael tried to argue. "I'm sorry, rules are rules." Money was disappearing at a catastrophic rate. Michael switched to instant noodles for 39 cents and cheap bread. At night, he lay awake counting the days left until eviction. 7, 6, 5. In those moments, dangerous thoughts crept into his mind. Vincent Diaz would surely help find work. One heist, one robbery, and the money problem would be solved. After all, what did he have to lose? His reputation? What reputation does a former child killer have? But every time those thoughts became too intrusive, Michael would take out the wooden king and remember Jimmy's words, "Be the king of your life." And then the phone rang. "Dad?" The world froze. It was Sophia's voice, his daughter, who was 7 when he was arrested. Now she was 26. "Sophia, oh my God, how did you find my number?" "The probation office gave me your contacts. I thought you would call me yourself, but..." Disappointment mixed with pain echoed in her voice. "You knew when you would get out. Why didn't you reach out?" "I wanted to, I just didn't know what to say." "Hi, daughter, Daddy's home sounds stupid after 19 years. "Yeah, stupid." The coldness in her voice cut like a blade. "We need to meet. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Morning Glory Cafe at the corner of Madison and 3rd. "Sophia, wait, Beeps. Michael hung up the phone with trembling hands. His daughter wants to meet, for the first time in 19 years. He should have been happy, but instead, he felt panic. What if she hates me? What if she came just to say that I'm dead to her? The next 24 hours stretched like an eternity. Michael changed his clothes 3 times, choosing the best of the 3 shirts he had. He shaved with a dull razor in front of the cracked mirror in the communal bathroom. He arrived at the cafe half an hour early and sat on a bench across the street, gathering his courage and trying to calm the trembling in his hands. At 2 o'clock, Sophia walked into the cafe. Michael would recognize her among a million people. The same brown eyes as her mother, the same stubborn chin. But the girl he remembered had become a woman. Beautiful, but with something very weary in her gaze. Dark circles under her eyes, 2 thin arms, signs of someone who works a lot and sleeps little. "Hi, Dad." No hugs, no smiles. She sat down across from him and folded her hands on the table. Michael noticed that her fingers were yellow from nicotine. "You look great, Sophia." "Thanks, and you've aged." She looked him up and down. "And lost weight. Prison?" "Prison." The waitress brought a menu filled with coffee drink names that Michael didn't understand. "I'll have a latte with oat milk and lavender syrup," Sophia said. "And you?" "Coffee, regular black." When the waitress left, Sophia took a photo out of her bag and placed it on the table. "This is Lucas, your son. He's 17. In the photo, a teenager in an orange prison jumpsuit, dark hair, brown eyes, an angry look, an exact copy of Michael at the same age. But in the boy's eyes, there was not just anger. There was emptiness, indifference to the world and to himself. Where is he? Morrison Juvenile Correctional Facility, 4th time in 3 years. Sophia spoke in a flat, emotionless tone, as if reading a news report. Last time he was caught with $10,000 worth of fentanyl, pure substance, not cut. Enough to kill half the city. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter as poison. Sophia. What, Sophia? For the first time, emotions surfaced in her voice. Anger, pain, despair. He doesn't know you. Not at all. To him, you're just an empty line in the documents. And do you know what's the scariest part? He is proud of you, thinks that being a gangster dad is cool, wants to be just as cool. Let me talk to him. Why, to tell him how cool you were? How great it is to rob banks and run from the police? Each word was like a hammer blow. Sophia, I've changed. Really? She leaned forward, and Michael saw the same pain in her eyes that once was in the eyes of parents of dead children. Have you found a job yet? Rented an apartment? Or are you still living on $27 a day in a junky flop house? Michael was silent. Do you know what I've been doing all these years? Her voice grew quieter, but it became even more terrifying. Working at 2 jobs, sometimes 3, as a waitress in cheap diners, a cleaner in offices, a clerk in night shops, so that Lucas wouldn't go hungry, so he would have clothes, so I could pay lawyers every time he got arrested. Tears began to roll down her cheeks, but her voice remained steady. And he still became a criminal, just like you. Because of the genes, Dad. Because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And you know what? Every time I look at him, I see you. And I hate myself for that. That's not true, Sophia. People can change. No, then prove it. She stood up and put on her jacket. Find a job. Get your life together. Become a person that your son can respect, not for prison stories, but for something real, for something good. She headed for the exit, but turned back at the door. Sophia, wait. When will I be able to see Lucas? When you earn the right to be called his father. The door slammed, leaving Michael alone with a photograph of his son and a cooling cup of coffee. Michael sat at the table for another hour, staring at the picture. The boy was a chilling copy of him at 17, the same challenge in his eyes, the same confidence that the whole world owed him something. The same road to nowhere. God, what have I done, he thought. Not only did I kill 3 children, but I also turned my own son into a criminal. That night, the dreams were particularly vivid. Ricardo was joined by 2 other children, Carlos and Ana. They stood around his bed and looked silently. Now your son is following in your footsteps, said Ricardo. How many more children will you kill? Michael woke up in a cold sweat and could not fall asleep again. In the morning, fate threw him a chance. At Sally's bar, where the cheapest joint in the area where beer cost $2 and whiskey was watered down, he was called out. Mikey, damn, you're out. Rico Moreno, a childhood classmate with whom they grew up on the same street. Now he looked like a small but successful businessman. A clean suit, gold watch, confident stride. Hey, Rico. How's it going, bro? How's life on the outside? Rico sat down next to him and ordered 2 beers. Not great. I can't find a job. With your record, that's understandable. The kids died, right? 3. Rico whistled. Tough. Listen, do you want me to help? My cousin Maria works in the school district. They're looking for a janitor at Westside Middle School. They pay little, $10 an hour, but it's clean work. Does she know about my conviction? Mike, it's a school in the toughest neighborhood in the city. They have ex-cons, recovering addicts, and just desperate people teaching there. The main thing is don't kill the kids and come sober. Rico laughed at his own joke, but Michael grimaced. Sorry, bro. Didn't think. No problem. Can you arrange it? I'll call tomorrow. The next day, Michael stood in the office of the principal of Westside Middle School. Melissa Carter, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, was reading his file. Mr. Rodriguez, I read your case in full. She set aside the thick folder and looked him in the eye. Bank, chase, accident, 3 dead children. Yes, ma'am. I understand that you didn't shoot the guard. I understand that you weren't the one driving. But your actions led to the death of 3 innocent children. She stood up and walked to the window. Do you see that memorial? Michael looked. In the schoolyard stood a small monument with names and photographs. These are the children from our neighborhood who have died from violence in the last 10 years. 23 names. The youngest was 9 years old. She turned around. I have a simple question for you. Do you regret what happened? Michael was silent for a long time, recalling the faces of the children on the bus. Every day for the last 19 years. I see them in my dreams every night. Good. She sat back down at the table. We have a critical staff shortage. 6 employees have left in the last 3 months. The district is tough, and the kids are even tougher. The pay is $10 an hour, 40 hours a week. You'll mostly work evenings when the kids are not around. I'm in. Wait, I'm not finished. She pulled another folder from the drawer. These are reports on juvenile crime in our area. In the last year, 123 arrests, drugs, thefts, fights, and in 2 cases, murders. Many of these kids go to my school. Michael silently studied the statistics. I'm hiring you not because I believe in redemption or second chances. I'm hiring you because I have no choice. But remember one thing, one mistake, one complaint, one hint of a problem, and you'll be out of here faster than a bullet. Clear? Crystal clear, ma'am. Then welcome to the team. You start tomorrow. The first weeks of work passed unnoticed. Michael came to the school at 6 in the evening when all the kids had already gone home and worked until midnight. He mopped floors in classrooms, cleaned toilets, wiped down boards, took out the trash, and washed windows. The work was simple and monotonous, but honest. For the first time in 20 years, he was earning money without breaking the law. Every Friday, receiving a paycheck of $320, he felt a pride he hadn't experienced since his teenage years. Over these weeks, he learned the school like the back of his hand. Hallways with peeling paint and graffiti, classrooms with broken windows taped up, a gym with a leaky roof where buckets were placed when it rained. But the worst was reading what the kids wrote on the bathroom walls. Life sucks. All adults are liars. I want to die. Michael painted over these inscriptions every day, but new ones appeared the next day. They are just as lost as I once was, he thought. No one showed them another way. But one Thursday, everything changed. It was the Friday after Thanksgiving. Ms. Carter approached him in the hallway while he was scrubbing the floors. Mr. Rodriguez, I have an emergency. I'm listening. Ms. Johnson is sick with the flu and there's no substitute until Monday. And I have an important meeting with the trustees in half an hour. Could you watch the correction class for the last period? Michael felt something tighten in his stomach. What kind of class is that? Teens with behavioral issues, fights, drugs, thefts, truancy, those who don't fit into the regular program. She sighed. Basically society's outcasts, to be honest. Just make sure they don't kill each other. The school bus will pick them up in an hour. What am I supposed to tell them? Nothing. Give them some assignment and sit. The main thing is not to leave them alone. The door to classroom 213 looked like the entrance to a war zone. From inside came such noise that it sounded like a riot was happening. Michael pushed the door open and froze. 10 teenagers aged 14 to 17 were creating absolute chaos. A tall African-American with tattoos on his arms was playing basketball with crumpled paper, using a trash can as a hoop. A freckled redhead was playing poker with 2 girls for real money. Crumpled bills were on the table. A skinny, nervous type in the corner was smoking something that would definitely not tobacco. Music blared from several phones simultaneously. Each was listening to their own, creating a cacophony of sounds. Silence, shouted Michael. No one even looked his way. I said silence. Now several faces turned towards him. The tall guy slowly turned around. His eyes were cold, full of challenge and barely concealed aggression. Who are you, old man? The one who's currently responsible for order in this class. What's your name? Daniel. And I don't care about your order. Michael recognized that look as his own reflection. Rage against the world, pain hidden behind aggression, a desire to harm everyone around because you've already been harmed. He had the same look at 17. All right, Daniel, now tell your friends to turn off the music and take their seats. Or what? Are you going to Call the principal? File a complaint? Daniel stood tall, almost 2 meters, broad shoulders, arms scarred from street fights. He was used to intimidating adults with his appearance, and it worked. But Michael didn't flinch. 19 years in prison had taught him to read people like an open book, and he saw the truth. Beneath all that showy aggression was just a scared kid who didn't know how to express his pain any other way. No, Daniel, I'll tell you a story. What story? A hint of curiosity crept into his voice, though the boy tried to hide it. About a guy who also thought he was the toughest around. The music began to fade. The other students slowly turned to him. This guy was 19 years old. He thought he was a real gangster. He believed he could take whatever he wanted, and no one would stop him. Michael pulled a wooden figurine from his pocket and placed it on the teacher's desk. He decided to rob a bank. It seemed like easy money, but everything went wrong. A guard tried to stop them. His accomplice shot. They ran to the car, but the driver was high and crashed into a school bus at full speed. The classroom fell silent as a grave. Even the guy smoking in the corner extinguished his cigarette. 3 kids died, 9, 10, and 11 years old. Ricardo Vasquez, Carlos Mendez, Anna Johnson. The red-haired boy put down his cards. And what happened to that guy? 19 years behind bars. Every night he saw the faces of those kids in his dreams. He missed his daughter's childhood and the birth of his son. And when he got out, it turned out no one wanted him. Is that about you? Asked one of the girls, a dark-skinned girl with intelligent eyes. About me. My name is Michael Rodriguez, and I'm a child killer. A long, heavy silence. And why did you tell us this? Daniel asked. The aggression in his voice shifted to caution. Because I see the same rage in your eyes that I had, the same desire to harm the world that harmed you. Michael scanned the classroom, and I want you not to repeat my mistakes. What are we supposed to do? Asked the skinny guy who had been smoking. We have no choice. We're from the ghetto. Here, you either deal or starve. There's always a choice. The question is whether you have the brains to see it. Michael lifted the wooden figurine. Do you know what this is? Chess, Daniel muttered, a game for nerds and old-timers. For nerds? Michael couldn't help but smile. Do you know how much the best players in the world earn? Magnus Carlsen made $15 million last year. More than many football players. Lies. You can check online. And do you know why chess players earn so much? The red-haired boy leaned forward. Why? Because chess isn't just a game, it's a workout for the mind. The ability to think 10 moves ahead. The capacity to calculate the consequences of every decision. So what? Asked the girl. So these skills work not just on the board, but in life. In prison, the most respected inmates are those who can play chess, because it's the only war without blood. The only place where you can win using only your brains. Michael placed the king in the center of an imaginary board.